Hi, everyone. I'm Gina Minardi, and I'm a licensed therapist who got fed up with therapy. This is a one-woman show about my journey of finding the spaces between non-traditional approaches of healing. What I learned is that there's no one right way to heal, and you truly are your best resource. Therapists and healers are meant to support you on your path, but they don't have all of the answers. You do. This show is about the spaces between laughter, tears, thoughts, ego, soul, messy growth, and moments of joy. It's about personal liberation, inner knowing, and the tools that get you there. I will cover topics that make many of us uncomfortable and interviewing people who are willing to go there. I've spent thousands of hours listening to human beings navigate their life story, from rehabs in Malibu to homeless shelters in East LA, and now my private practice. It has been some of the most profound, painful, and beautiful moments in my life. Thank you so much for joining me. Hello, friends, and welcome back to Spaces Between. Today, I'm sitting down with Lisa Tahir, a psychotherapist, author, and fellow podcaster. She wrote a book called The Chiron Effect, and it's healing our core wounds through astrology, empathy, and self-forgiveness. I should also mention that it was endorsed by His Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama. That's pretty cool, Lisa.
Thank you, Gina.
Welcome to the show. I'm super excited to have you on today.
I really appreciate being on the Spaces Between with you and our listeners today. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. So before I go into all of the questions regarding your book and astrology and psychotherapy, I wanted to ask you, how are you doing as we transition in this time of the world or I should say, the US opening up? We were on lockdown for a long time. How has life felt having a little bit more freedom? What have you noticed on kind of an energetic level? A lot of my clients are feeling different things with the pace and the movement of what's happening now.
Yes, I like your question. It's an important one. And personally, for myself, I have really enjoyed being able specifically to go back to the gym. Fitness is such an important part of my life. I was a fitness instructor for 13 years. And like everyone, having to figure that piece of their lives out through outdoor workouts or online workouts, it wasn't my favorite. I struggled with that because I really enjoy going out of the home to work out and to a gym. So I feel proud that I hung through and figured it out during the pandemic and such. And I'm so delighted to actually go to the gym. I have a greater appreciation for it than ever before. And I think it's unique to each of us, what we missed that we get to go back to. And so yeah, that for me. Anything for you? I'm curious now that you asked me the question.
Good question. One of my clients and I were talking about it the other day, and she was saying, Gina, I was so used to the slowness of life, and I was so used to being sort of incubated, and she was doing really deep self-work, as was I would say, within the whole year. And I would say the uptick of the pace has been both exciting and overwhelming, because I find myself going back to old patterns and old routines of, okay, I'm working a lot and then I'm seeing friends a lot and all of these things. I say this with a knowledge that a lot of the world is going through a very different experience right now, the US being more open. So I just want to mention that. But yeah, it's been interesting. I've loved it. And then part of me has also just kind of wanted to crawl back into my safe little space.
Yes.
Doing, because we all created our own new routines.
We did.
Yeah. Yeah. So
we
anyway,
did.
But overall good.
Yeah. Same here.
Yeah. All right. So before I jump into any questions directly regarding your book and your work, I would have to say, and I love that I'm having you on because I've always been a little bit of an astrology skeptic. And
Yeah.
anybody who's listened to my show knows that I'm incredibly open to all things. I'm open to astrology. But I'll have clients say certain things to me like, "Well, Gina, it's because of this sign." And
Mm.
I don't know if it's because I haven't understood it. I haven't, done a big enough of a deep dive into it. And again, it's something that I think there's a lot of meat and a lot of information. But could you just talk about how you fell into astrology and how, I mean, really, it's kind of the foundation of your work, yes?
Well, I think this is such an important place to start
Mhm.
because so many people feel like you do about astrology and wonder about its place, its reliability, its value. And so for me, I approach this work as a psychotherapist, as someone that's always been interested in personal psychology and how we fit into the world at large, how our families of origin influenced us. And what I've found about astrology and believe is that it's a symbolic language that is a snapshot of the stars and planets when we were born, and it's unique to each of us. And so, what I've discovered is that it gives kind of like a map of our lives and certain propensities that we could have, but underlying it all is that we have free will and the ability to change. So I use astrology as a departure point, as like a diagnostic tool of to find where Chiron is. Chiron specifically is a minor planet slash comet in astronomy that was discovered in 1977, and it illuminates in astrology where we have our area of vulnerability, a main area of vulnerability, or up to and including a core wound for some of us, where we tend to want to hide that from ourselves. We don't want to talk about it. We might feel like we look good on paper, but privately and secretly, we have low self esteem and struggle with our own sense of value and worth. And so I discovered there are 12 placements, 12 possible placements of Chiron based upon which sign it's in. Meaning, is Chiron in Aries or Taurus or Gemini or Cancer, all the way through Pisces. And so for me, it's not important to have, like, I'm a therapist, I'm not an astrologer. I have in the resource section of my book Astrology Professionals if you're interested in that angle of things. But I really believe in personal psychology, spirituality, and taking personal responsibility for our healing. So that's kind of where I stand. And even His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama, in the full letter that he sent me, the whole endorsement, he says, I'm not a student of astrology, but as a Buddhist scientist, I see the value of learning what our core wounds are, and your methods of healing them through compassion and self-forgiveness are right on. With that is how we heal humanity's deepest wounds. So you don't have to believe, in astrology or know anything about it. You just have to want to understand yourself and take some steps to change the things that you want to change or need to change.
Okay, okay. I really love the
How does
lens.
that sit with you?
It sits well. It sits really well because I think maybe where people who listen to me on this show know that there's certain things that rub me a certain way. And when I feel like people, whether they're healers
Mm-hmm.
or whoever, where it's just like a really finite, this is, and just such a, how do I want to say this? Like it's the only way. And I really love that you said it's more of a symbolic lens of how to look at your life and how to look at your wounding. So if am I
Yeah.
following that correctly?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Okay. Dare I ask? I don't know. I don't want to put you on the spot,
Yeah, it's okay.
but would you know offhand? I'm a Virgo.
Okay.
September 12th, 1981.
Let's see, September. I have a chart in front of me. So your Chiron placement is based upon your date of birth, your place of birth. That's all you need. I have an interactive website at nolatherapy.com. / Chiron, Chiron. And if you have your time of birth, that gives you an additional house placement of Chiron, which means that's the area that your core wounding manifests. And I'll use myself as an example. My Chiron is in the sign of Aries, which speaks to a core wounding in one's sense of value and worth. And a person with this placement, like I have, you might find yourself overperforming to feel confident. Like you have to seek performance-based love. You have to work really hard to feel good enough. And you find it's never enough, because that's not how we actually source our value and worth. It's not through what we do. Those accomplishments are fleeting compared to like a deep inner knowing that we are valuable, we are worthy, because we belong on this planet and we deserve to be alive. So for me, it's been about shifting my value, where I source it from, and just a deeper innate knowing and rooting in to my value, even if I never created another thing. So it's like you start to live able to receive instead of always just giving so much. So that's a little glimpse. Will you tell me your month and year again, please?
Yes, it's September 12th and then 1981. And then I'm also going to go back to what you just talked about, but I don't want to interrupt your thought process around this.
Let's see. So it's looking like, okay, let me just see, September, June, July, August, September. You said 1981. Yep. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. So it's looking like from this chart that your Chiron is in the sign of Taurus, which speaks to core wounding by neglect. Mm-hmm. And where it's like some of your emotional needs. And I'm just going to turn to that chapter because it says it better than I can try to remember. That in your woundedness, in your vulnerability, you might feel a lack of self-worth. You might not feel solid or safe. Value, you source value based on material possessions, and yet kind of always feeling vulnerable. But once you heal that Chiron, you're able to trust the wisdom of your body, forgive the inner child for experiences. This placement speaks to sometimes there's abuse and trauma in one's background, even with Chiron and Taurus, and that you're worthy of committed love. And it's really about knowing how worthy and valuable, able to trust yourself, your inner knowing of people, places, and things, and not setting that aside, regardless of what anyone else has said, like taking your power back in every way.
Oh,
does any of this resonate with you, Gina?
Yes, it does. Oh my goodness. I'm having a moment right now.
It's okay.
No. I mean, in a good way.
Yeah.
2021 has been all about taking my power back. That's really, that resonated. Also committed love. I would say my partner and I have done the most intense work, and again, through this podcast, people know we've had a pretty fiery relationship. I've been, I would say, somewhat unstable in my past relationships. And so really this commitment and feeling this worthiness to long-term love.
Yes.
There were a lot of things that you said that really, you said trusting the wisdom of my body.
Yes.
Innate wisdom. Yes. And working through self-worth. Absolutely. All of these hit like a deep soul level, I would say.
Oh, good. And you've been healing this naturally. And I find, Gina, a lot of people that are healers, podcasters, you've been doing this without even knowing it. So it can be a real confirmation, like keep on your path, like you're doing so well, to just affirm yourself.
Yes. Oh, and I really want to go back to something that you said, because I was just talking with a client, and I don't want to overspeak for this client, but I don't live in Los Angeles anymore, but I still see a lot of my clients based out of LA. So there's a lot of worthiness surrounded around career. And I said career and performance, and I would say image and bodies. And you talked about this deep inner knowing, and it's part of the reason, I love the idea of space between. That's what I feel is sort of the God space, or that deeper, how do you get, when you're working with people, if they're really attached to, and you maybe even relate to this, that kind of performance, or maybe overdoing, or, you were saying in the beginning, you found worthiness in this maybe in the past. how do you get people to that space of tapping into their own intrinsic worthiness?
That's such a good question, Gina. And I even talk in my book a way to do this for yourself if you're really identified with performance based accomplishments is that those are external drives. Those are external validations, external ways that we validate ourselves. So in the book, I invite you to do an internal validation list, which would have to do with, asking my client to write down qualities about yourself that you like. And it can be hard at first to identify what those are, but they're things like I'm generous, I'm kind, I'm altruistic, I'm fair, um, I'm a good judge of character, like things, ways, like qualities about you that don't depend upon your actions, more of just who you are. And
Yeah.
by making that extensive list and adding to it and kind of sitting with that, you
Yeah.
start to increase value, like you start to prioritize those qualities more than just what you do, because those things that are internal, they're always with us. We can always turn to those parts of ourselves and
Mhm.
feel really good. And I invite clients and listeners alike to consider what those things are, the qualities you really like about yourself. And if this is hard for you, it's even more important to take some time and do it and write it down and keep that list somewhere where you can see it and really connect to those innate qualities within you. And that can help you shift that pattern in my experience.
Yeah. I again, I keep having, I always know somebody's hitting a beautiful chord when I have this sort of, this visceral response to it, and
Yeah.
I think that it's so true. I mean, we just, yeah, for somebody to be, I think it would be easier for some and then a really difficult task for others, but something, that we could all sit down to do and then have
Yeah.
that reminder each day. Because I think we do live in a world that's very materialistic and kind of focused on achievements and career
Yes.
and power and success and all of those things, right? Did you make the New York Times bestseller list, et
Right.
cetera, right? And then,
Yeah.
then I'm going to get my stamp of approval or that worthiness. But no, what are these intrinsic qualities within you that are within you every day? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Okay. So I've got so many questions around wounding, and then I'm going to let you just kind of later on rip about anything that you'd like to talk about
Sure.
within your book. When people come to you and say, I've done a lot of therapy, I've done plant medicine, I meditate, I've done all the things, and I just kind
Yeah.
of feel like this wounding, it's going to be this ever evolving process of working through
Right.
wounds. And what's your thoughts on that? Do you actually believe that somebody can get to a space where they're not working through wounding, or
Yeah. So, actually, the question you're asking me is the
yeah.
question I was sitting with 4 years ago when I started writing this book, because I felt really frustrated with how I myself have been a client in therapy for so many years, as well as being a therapist,
Mhm.
and tried so many different cool modalities and techniques, and I still felt at times like really disempowered and wounded, and I was kind of like, what the hell is going on, like what? And I was like, universe, what more is there, like is this all there is, so to speak? And that's when I was meditating and I kind of heard Chiron. And I had only known about Chiron from graduate school, hearing about Carl Jung wrote about Chiron, the archetypal wounded healer, just like in a class. And I was like, okay, that doesn't seem very significant, universe. And just, I kind of kept hearing it. So I felt prodded to Google search and really delve into Chiron and learn more about it. And when I learned that in astrology, it's a placement that speaks to like where we have patterns, and patterns, as you know, are so important to have awareness of,
Mhm.
because as Carl Jung did say, if they are unconscious, this is my paraphrase, they will drive and direct your life and you won't know it. And you'll end up show up in relationship after relationship feeling the same kind of way after the honeymoon wears off, kind of back to your same self, or you'll move to a new city. And once the excitement wears off, it's like, oh, here I am again. And those patterns are what Chiron addresses. And it's been spoken about back to Sigmund Freud when he discovered the repetition compulsion and wrote about these are childhood patterns that we repeat in relationships. And then object relationists and Eric Erikson talked about this in psychosocial development, that the patterns of relationship early on imprint us and we tend to repeat those. So it's really important to become conscious of especially our relationship patterns, starting first and foremost with the relationship we have to and with ourselves in our own head, the way we talk to ourselves, the way we encourage or critique ourselves, that's the place to start, that my book walks you through, just the power of our mind to change and shift and believe new things that we want. And all of us want to be happy, we want to have more money, we want success, but often the path to get there is telling ourselves some radically new thoughts and then start aligning our beliefs and our behaviors with the thoughts that we want to become and live into. And it takes kind of clearing up these old dysfunctional patterns of not feeling good enough, or the neglect you experienced, or Chiron in Cancer, core wounding by abandonment, the abandonments we've gone through in our lives, or feeling cut off from creativity, Chiron in Leo, feeling disconnected from community and a sense of being part of something greater, Chiron in Aquarius. And so as I started to research and write, I just found that for myself, because I'm sure you've heard clients come in and kind of like, what's wrong with me? And nothing is wrong with you. We all just have an area, kind of a specific area that we maybe don't feel as strong in. And it's really important to be gentle. That's where the self-forgiveness and empathy for yourself, to really understand why you have these feelings, why you've attracted certain relationships or experiences, not to blame you, but to encourage you through, like, what can I believe differently? And so I found like I really hit the mother lode in discovering when your Chiron, you can focus your efforts in like one area and not feel like anything's wrong with you. This is just an area to strengthen and develop within yourself. And it's like your go-to. So I give affirmations in my book. I give 4 to 5 practical takeaway steps that you can apply today, because I love practical wisdom. Like, give me some ideas of what I can do, because it's helpful.
I was going to ask you. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it's okay.
I think with the audience and the listeners, what are some practical, just offhand, if you have if somebody, let's say, I think a lot of people struggle with issues of worthiness and self-esteem,
yes,
et cetera, et cetera. Are there any specific tools that you would have for that?
Hi, friends. I just wanted to take a quick break and thank you for tuning in. I love making this podcast for you, and I hope you love listening. If you do, the best way to show it is leaving a review, especially on Apple Podcasts. Thank you so much in advance, and now back to the show.
Definitely. Well, I'm thinking for like the Chiron and Aries person, really highly functioning people that I feel like a lot of your listeners could be, really engaged and successful people in whatever way you're defining that, is that we tend to want to do everything. And it may be hard to say no, especially as women, balancing different areas of our lives. And so one of the practical steps I put in that chapter has to do with when you're asked to do something, invited to do something, asked to go to a meeting, whether it's the personal or professional setting, before you just say yes, to just say, hey, let me get back to you, even if it's a yes, and give yourself that buffer of time to sit with it, look at your schedule, and to learn to say, let me get back to you, because then you don't feel like you have to make yourself do things that aren't authentic or you don't want to do. It gets you out of people pleasing much easier than, to say, hey, let me consider that and get back to you, and really become vigilant about that for yourself, because we tend to commit to things and then feel like we can't uncommit, or then we do uncommit and we look really flaky and like not responsible, which never feels good. So is that helpful?
Oh, it's so helpful. If any of the listeners, and I've heard this, oh man, so many over the years, individuals who, I mean, just say like, hey, I really don't want to go to this baby shower, or I
Yeah.
don't want to go to this wedding. But it feels really, and I know those are big events, right?
Right.
And it's really hard for people to learn how to tune in and trust in the self of, am I spreading myself too thin?
Yes.
Where is my energy? Where is my energy
Exactly.
going? And is it going too much all over the place? Yeah, but that's a hard one. I mean, I've had many a client say to me, well, how could I really, Gina, say no to a baby shower? And then I said, well, is it worse if you go and show up and then you're resentful that you've kind of abandoned yourself, that you
Right.
said yes, and you didn't want to be there? And then energetically, you're not really present either because you don't want to be
Exactly.
there. Yeah.
Yes. So I think definitely giving yourself permission to say no.
Yeah.
Some people need to look at, like, when I think of boundaries as you're talking, some people listening might need to learn through their Chiron placement where to set boundaries with others. And sometimes it's setting boundaries with yourself, like allowing yourself to say no, allowing yourself to change your mind, like changing those boundaries that we have with ourselves. And even if you will disappoint someone, I think most people, want us to take good care of ourselves, especially coming through the pandemic where it became so much more important, mental health and how we go about that. So to take the risk of just being honest and authentic when you can about, not able to attend.
Yeah.
Or if you decide to go for maybe 20 minutes, maybe that's an option. This is really hard for you. You can go for a short time and
Yeah.
then give yourself permission to leave.
Yeah. That's a beautiful option. It's always a great option,
Yeah.
setting that time boundary for yourself that you can go and be really present because you've said, okay, I'm going to be here for
Yes.
this amount of hours, but then after that I'm going home. Because what I'll hear continuously through clients, friends, everybody, myself included, oh, well, I don't have time for my self-care practice, or
Right.
that 20 or 30 minutes of meditation, that when I'm really in a routine, and the exercise and the meditation and the journaling feels so good, but it so easily falls off for individuals because I'm going a bit on a tangent with the boundaries, but
Yeah.
I think it's a tough one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good topic
Yeah, it is
to
a good
brought up.
topic. I wanted to go into, because again, you bring up some bangers, which are self-forgiveness and empathy. And I think that these are two things that should be taught in school for little kids.
Yes.
And, how do you help your clients really in the process of when somebody says, I have been on a path of trying to forgive myself for X, Y, and Z, and I just can't.
Yeah.
I don't believe it. I don't feel it. I've been meditating it, or whatever. How do you work with people, or what do you offer in the land of self-forgiveness?
Absolutely. There's a section on my book called Forgiveness, and I talk about what I've learned is that forgiveness is often progressive
Mhm.
versus like a one-time event, that especially when we've been hurt, betrayed, wounded, by others, which is usually the case, that it can be hard to forgive because we think that means that what they did is okay when that's not the case at all. And it's all right if you're in a place where you feel like you can't forgive, but to start to think about it from like a progressive forgiveness, that this person that hurt you is certainly wounded, that wounded people wound others, as we've heard it said. And if you can see the other person from the little girl or boy that they were in their woundedness, and they didn't receive some of the love and acceptance and approval that they needed, it can help to kind of soften the judgments we have towards others and towards ourselves, because the way we judge and criticize others, we certainly do that to our own selves. It's not one directional, it's multi-directional, and it's pointing right back at you. And so if you can soften the way you even view yourself, all of us have hurt other people, even if it's by accident, and to think about how you didn't mean to do those things. Maybe you yourself were wounded and it caused, there's an area a blind spot. And so the more softness you can give yourself and then start to turn that towards someone else, like maybe they didn't mean to do this, or if they did, clearly they need so much more love than what they could give them. And just to start to play with the boundaries of forgiveness and loosen it up instead of making it an all or nothing thing, I think you'll find it to be easier and it'll start to really work for you. You'll start to feel better.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You bring up, I mean, I have a lot of women that I work with who probably would define themselves as like, this is a little bit of a digression, but
Yeah.
boss bitches, and
Yeah.
they're really driven. And so, but even within the forgiveness realm, this idea of softening, right? And I know
Yeah.
with my clients, even when I bring up the word soft, there's kind of this like,
Yes.
soft equals weakness, or
Ah,
softening into forgiving somebody. There's, and again, we could talk about ego and all sorts of stuff, but I mean, you do or do not have to speak to softening, but I just love that you brought that up, softening. And
no, and that's the other part of your question, in fact, Gina, was about how to help people with this. Because we do have a belief, and it's a false one. I talk about it in my book, that we only achieve and learn through being really hard on ourselves, really stern, very punishing and critical, like you suck, do that again, or you're stupid. And that never feels good. When you tell yourself, when you've been told that, or tell someone else, it disempowers. And instead, like a loving, the best coaches could hold you accountable, but in a way that like makes you can achieve this. So it's about holding yourself accountable in ways that really support you where you need support. Like, hey, come on, let's try that again. Let's try this again tomorrow. And life, as you know, is always going to give us another opportunity to try again with whatever area it is. So it's okay if you didn't do it to your best ability today, whatever it is, that you're going to have another chance to do over. And even ask the universe for that, or whatever practices you have and believe about life, to just, if you're comparing yourself just to you versus everyone else around you, it's going to feel better because you'll be able to see you're better today than last year or last month. And that feels better than comparing to others that, we don't really know what's going on inside of them. So keep it about you.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Yes. Is there anything else from your book in particular that you feel, I mean, that we missed, or we talked a lot about the core wounding and some tools, to work with getting into the inner knowing. Um,
Yeah.
Anything else that you'd like to add, or I'll move on to some other questions I have for you.
The one other thing is hearing about your listeners and being, like boss bitches and successful, achieving women that learning Chiron. Say if you have an LLC, a business, I put in the date that I incorporated my LLC, and it revealed to me that the core wounding of my business had to do with Libra, which Libra has to, core wounding and the sign of Libra has to do with contracts, both personal relationships and business. And right when I discovered that, Gina, I was in the middle of trying to get out of a contract, get out of this $1,400 kind of an air quotes mistake that I made because I didn't read the contract clearly enough. And it was very illuminating to me that Chiron, and I was able to successfully navigate it, for much lesser cost, and really learned that for me in business, it's about reading contracts, really making sure I understand them. And if I don't, ask questions. So if you find out, say, if you're married or in a relationship, your first date or anniversary, you can learn the Chiron placement of your relationship, where it might be vulnerable and need some support, in your partner, what their Chiron is. So you're not having the same arguments, you're able to help support each other where in your vulnerabilities instead of attack each other with them. So you can use this in business and relationships as well as your own personal life and with your kids.
Yeah. And what I'm hearing from you is it sounds like it just really kind of like it funnels down, and it
Yes.
filters down to what are really those core wounds and those things that you need to look at according to certain dates that you're saying, whether it's, at your birth date, and then also important. So you were saying with the contract date, you looked that up because you were establishing your LLC and you wanted to see where it was placed on the chart. Am I following that correctly?
Yep. I started my business, say a particular date in 2007. And I just put that date in my interactive at nolatherapy.com/Chiron, which is where it's in the book too. You can go there, enter your personal date of birth or the date you started your business, the date your relationship started, and it generates for you where Chiron is.
Okay.
And then you go to my book with that information to learn.
Okay.
And so, yeah, it was just so revealing to me. And even countries like the date, the United States, the Declaration of Independence, that the United States has a Chiron placement, talking about how we take care, we rush to the aid of other countries, but don't do a good job taking care of our own inhabitants. When you look at the public school system and healthcare, for example, so you can use this in various ways to see how you can augment and support.
All right. Interesting. Very, very much
Yeah.
so. So going into, I wanted to ask you, in your own personal self-care and, healing modalities, what works for you? A lot of people have morning rituals. What works
Yeah.
for you on a daily basis to keep yourself in sort of a balanced, in a state of more equanimity versus extreme states of, yeah.
Absolutely. No, I love this question because I think it's important for us to find what works for us. And for me, it's definitely every day is when I first wake up, doesn't matter how early or how late, is I meditate for at least 5 minutes. And even if I'm on vacation with friends, I've started to do this now. Like my friends know I need my, 10, 15 minutes to meditate privately, to just kind of say thank you, when I get up to the day and just sit and allow myself to receive any guidance or direction, asking for guidance and direction. Just sometime I'll sit in silence and meditate. Other times I'll use guided meditations from YouTube to help kind of direct my thoughts. But that's definitely one thing every morning. And I can tell you, if you establish something like that for yourself, whatever comes up during your day, you're going to be able to meet it in a better place than had you not taken that time for yourself first.
Absolutely. I would 100% agree with you. I can
Do you have a daily practice?
Oh yeah. Yes.
I figured.
So yeah, sometimes, and just like I tell all my clients, sometimes you fall off the horse, and at least for myself I'm really, my physical fitness is probably not in the sense of my body, but really I have a lot of energy. So
Yeah.
my body, moving my energy and dispersing that every day, whether it's surfing, hiking, beach walking,
Awesome.
that's always, and for me, just being in nature, always centers me and always
Yeah.
a connected space. So I would say that's my number one. And of course, meditation. And then journaling. Journaling's a big one for me. Processing, having that space where it's my space of reflection. And it's a great way for me also to go back and look at spaces where I'm stuck, or, okay,
Yeah.
I'm still have got some funky stuff right there or whatever. Journaling is profound for me. So I would say those
Yeah.
are my majors. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Mhm. And a glass of water with lemon, as weird as that is.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's something like, it just kind of, feels like it cleanses the gut, and it's just a good, yeah, that's another one. It's the little things that tell you like, hey, I love you, body. I'm taking a good care of
Yes.
you, etc. Yeah.
And telling your body that I've started to speak to my cells, to my body, like directly, like, hey, like, thank you for working and keep working. And I send you love, and, like just really to turn your self-talk towards your body and to yourself. It feels kind of weird at first, at least it did for me, but it's like what we really need to really notice and affirm
Yeah.
ourselves.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. And these bodies that are so intelligent and
Yes.
do so much for us. Yes.
Yes.
I'm grateful for. All right. So these are my sort of, I would say, rapid fire, but you don't have to
Okay.
give me the reason I say rapid fire is I don't like people to think about them too much. Just
Yeah,
kind
got
of
it.
whatever, but you already,
First thought.
yes. So the first one is a fun one for me. And are you more of a Beyonce or Rihanna woman, or both?
Rihanna.
Okay.
Definitely.
Do you know you're the first
Really?
Rihanna,
Oh, I love Riri.
If you ever listen, Riri, there's I love you too. But yes, you're the first. That's wow. Okay, so moving on from that, why do you think that we as human beings are here on this planet? It's a two-part question.
Okay.
Why are we here on this planet? And then why is your soul in particular here?
We are here on this planet, and this is a new belief for me. I didn't used to think this was the case, but I really think it's for us to be happy, to really find our happiness in all the ways, kind of like remembering what our happiness is and giving ourselves permission to live into that. Because when we are at our happiest, we are doing our best. We're giving our best service. We're really maximizing, living our potentials. So I think it's by cultivating happiness that we start to truly live our purpose from a powerful place. And I feel like that's why I'm here to be happy and share that, shine that, with everyone. And my book has been like a source of my greatest happiness, hearing people really resonate with the pages and feeling like they are healing and this is clicking and they're just like so able to change and be who they want to be. That's brought me a lot of happiness.
Yeah. Well, interestingly enough, that the Dalai Lama gave you an endorsement because he wrote the book, The Art of Happiness, correct? So,
Wow, he did. I forgot about that.
yes. So
Yes.
and it is a real, and I think sometimes it can almost be looked at as, I don't want to say a selfish thing but yeah, cultivating happiness and that joy. And then that, as you said, when you live from that space and then you share that energy with others and
Yes.
you create from a space in your life that is, yeah, one of joy and happiness. So
Yes. And
authenticity, which we need more of in the world.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, I love that. Okay, last two questions. This one either throws people off. I don't think it's going to throw you off. What do you think happens after death?
Oh my gosh. And I have a personal experience. I recently lost a dear best friend and it was unexpected, her passing. And I feel like the answer to that question has become more real to me because I felt her with me. And I believe we transition. It's like we're right here, just on the other side of a veil, so to speak. But like we stay, like we're in non-physical where we came from, and we're still able to influence, people and things here. But like, us that are alive, it's like we really get to do it in our bodies. And so, for me, being alive has taken on just more significance and meaning after Emily's passing recently, that like I feel her here. And yet we're the ones able to take these physical actions and steps.
Yes. Yeah. I'm sorry to hear about your friend.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Life is always shocking.
Hmm.
But as you said, it's opened things up in you and this connection and this closeness that she is just beyond that veil. And that was so
Yeah.
stated. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have felt that in my own life for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
And this very last question is there something that someone, a spiritual teacher, a mentor, something you've read in a book, one statement or a quote or, something somebody said to you at 7-Eleven in passing that has stuck with you that you feel like has really, yeah, resonated in your life? And
I do. May I grab it? It's like right here on the shelf.
yes.
Okay, let me grab it.
I know.
Okay.
I think I was hanging on that last bit because I saw your excitement. I'm all, oh, she's got it.
Yes. So it's a quote that many of you are going to know. I'm sure you have heard it, read it, by Marianne Williamson in her book, A Return to Love, one of my favorite books. And I'm just honored that Marianne has been a mentor to me. I was able to hear her speak many times in Los Angeles and talk to her about my book. She's been just so encouraging and like as a mentor and guide. And she writes, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that frightens us most. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and famous. Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that people won't feel insecure around you. You were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in all of us. And when we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same.
Mm. Yes, it's so brings tears to my eyes. Such a
Yes,
beautiful quote. Yeah.
it's true. And this quote, actually, it's the last thing my dear friend Emily gave me before she passed away. She framed it for me because she knew how important this quote is. And it's like really special to have this and read it to your audience.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Beautiful. Lisa,
Yeah.
it has been a joy to have you on.
Thank you, Gina. You were wonderful.
Yes. Thank you so much. And I just wanted to ask you if there's anything that you want to share with the audience of where they can find you, any upcoming courses. I just kind of let this space, people just rip into what they want to.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, I'd love for you all listening to follow me on social media at NOLA Therapy, NOLA THERAPY. It stands for New Orleans, Los Angeles Therapy, both places that I live and work. And that's my website, nolatherapy.com, where I have an online class having to do with empowerment, empowerment, sourcing from within. It's like 3 to 7 minute videos of practices I utilize, books that I've learned from, really practical stuff. As well as you can get my book there, listen to All Things Therapy podcast. So yeah, just nolatherapy.com.
Amazing. Amazing.
Thank you for this opportunity, Gina.
Yes, thank you, Lisa.
Hi, friends. If you've been enjoying Spaces Between, please take a moment to subscribe, and leaving a review is the cherry on top. Thank you so much, and I look forward to connecting with you next week.